Hey everybody, welcome to the Dwell Podcast. It is so good to see you. This is the podcast that's dedicated to inspiring and activating church creatives and leaders. My name is Romeo, and this is Dalton Davis. You want to give us a little intro about yourself?
I'm the video director around here, so I'm usually not in front of the camera. I'm behind the camera. It's good to be here, and this was definitely a last minute kind of thing. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah,
Can
totally.
I say that?
Yeah.
We're just
You can throw us under the bus all you want. Yeah. Was it my idea?
Yeah, we were bouncing around ideas and kind of just more on the creative side. I felt like we could talk about getting stuck in creativity.
Yes.
Because as a video editor, director, kind of jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
You spend, 2 hours on Musicbed listening to song after song, and you're going, I'm not feeling very creative right now.
Yes.
And it's very hard to kind of move past that. So,
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think for us as a podcast, the last few podcasters, we've been talking about leadership, and Nathan Del Turco's been with us, and we've been talking a lot about real practical stuff, servant leadership, vulnerability and leadership. But we were sitting around and we were like, okay, we're going to dive into the next thing about leadership. And Dalton was like, why don't we talk about some creativity? And we were like, yeah. And I think that's the thing for church creatives, for church leaders, we have to stay open for that sort of, right or left turn that happens, So this is us just being open to it, going, yes, we need to talk about creativity. And just for me, a lot of people don't know, I actually went to art school. So this is I nerd out on this stuff.
Yeah.
I have a degree in fine arts and graphic design from U of A, which is way better than ASU. And I just love talking about creativity. I really do.
Yeah.
Because it's this intangible thing where you're like, what if I lose it? It's it feels like sand slipping through your fingers.
Right.
But as you grow in it, you start to realize, no, there are some principles that you can really, really get better at. But before we dive into how to get unstuck, for me as a church leader, creativity has found itself into the kind of fabric of leadership for me.
Right.
Because it's such a big value for me, number one. Number two, it's really hard to keep remembering that it's an important thing. So we talked about years ago, hey, we have excellence, which means technical excellence. We're hitting guitar parts. Our Sunday mornings are happening, no problem. But we're a really good cover band, and we're not taking a lot of risk. I don't know if I could say that, but I just did. Yeah. And a lot of churches are in that sort of place where, and I started telling the team, hey, it's not just technical excellence. It's not just playing it just like the album.
Right.
There's this other side. There's this creative excellence that is a big value for me on the team. And it's it's so worth trying to dig down.
Yeah.
Hey, can we rework existing songs? Are we bringing in original songs? Are we bringing in video content? All of that stuff, that's the first thing to chop off because it's really hard to dive into. But creativity, first and foremost, has to be a value for a leader.
Right.
It has to be a value for a team. Even if your pastor doesn't value it, it can still be a high value for a creative leader or worship pastor or video director or anything.
Right.
So right off the bat, just for everybody to know, creativity is a big value for us.
Right.
We really care about it. We sit around before Easter, we brainstorm things, we come up with ideas.
Right.
We always check with our pastor and go, okay, what are your ideas?
Right.
And then we take those ideas into the dark corners of the church and start working them. And by we, I mean Dalton.
Yeah, just staring at burning my eyes on a screen for hours on
staring
end.
at pixels for hours.
Yeah.
Pounding coffee.
Yeah.
But creativity is one of those things. When it's flowing, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
We're in the zone. We're coming up with ideas. When it's not flowing, all of a sudden it feels like,
it's stifling.
Lord,
It
what
stops
do you do?
you. Yeah,
Yes.
It stops you right in your tracks.
Yes.
It's really hard.
So for you,
cry.
Dalton, you're one of the creative leaders around here, one of the main creative leaders around here. What do you do when you come up into that sort of situation?
Yeah, I think it's kind of I think it's not just one thing that's gets you out of it, right? So,
Sure.
And I'm a really practical person, so I came with a list of
There we
things.
go. Yes, Dalton.
Very prepared.
Good.
So I came with a list, and maybe we could just drill through some of the notes that I have on my list.
Let's go through.
All right, and then we can talk about that. Cool.
Totally.
All right, so and these are in kind of no particular order. But as I was thinking, the main one that came up to me was just stop, like take a break.
Yeah.
I don't know how long of a break I really recommend. Sometimes it's 15 minutes and grabbing a coffee or making a pour over or just doing something and not looking at a screen, right? Yeah. Maybe walking outside, going around a block, around your neighborhood block or something like that.
Watching Bob Ross.
Yeah. Whatever that looks like. I find it's always good for me to, usually I just take coffee breaks and I have a pour over set up at home. Yeah. So I'll just sit there and grind coffee kind of aimlessly and just zone off and then make my pour over. 15 minutes has gone by. I think, okay, I'm ready to go back to the desk and look at the screen again. Yeah. Totally. So that's something that works for me. Do you have anything as far as that?
Absolutely. I mean, so creative arts used to be in the Lighthouse, which on our campus, we have this house called the Lighthouse, and it's kind of way off to the corner.
Right.
Everybody else is in building B. It's this at least 5-minute walk away.
Yeah.
And so I would hit a wall and I'd just be leaning back in my chair, staring at my computer going, I have no ideas. And I'd just be I'm going to go walk to building B, see what everybody's doing.
Right.
And I'm an introvert. That's not my natural state, but I knew I just got to get out of this cave.
You can only take so much. Yeah,
I got to get out of my creative cave.
I'm an introvert as well. I get it. Yeah.
So I'm okay, I'm going to go on a little walk.
Right.
And it's Phoenix, so it's 100 and hell outside, and you're walking, literally.
Yeah.
And it's the surface of the sun. But it was still refreshing for me. Just get out, just walk, just move. You need space to get perspective. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
So that's definitely something that I do all the time.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So number one, take a break.
Yeah. So I don't have 3 children at home. What do you do when maybe you're at home and it's a little chaotic? And this is totally off the cuff. I thought this would be a good thing to touch on.
Yeah.
My situation at home looks a lot different. We have pretty much an empty house. It's relatively quiet. What does it look like for you who have children at home? What do you do? Is it even something that you can do?
I feel there's a pre-2020 answer and there's a post-2020 answer.
Yeah.
2020 was one of those times where I was okay, I love y'all, but I'm just I've had it.
Yeah.
So with kids, it is tough. So sometimes for me, it's lean into it a little bit. So I'll just go, when 2020 was going on, I needed to take a break. I'd go throw the football with my son or something,
absolutely.
And I don't sports very often, but that was okay. So I do something that they wanted to do,
Right. Yeah.
If they are in this sort of how do I want to say it? Screaming mood.
Yeah.
Chaos mood.
Yeah.
Then a walk is really great.
Right.
And you gotta check with your wife and go, hey, are you about to lose it too? Because I'm about to lose it.
Right.
But I would just walk around the block kind of thing, But absolutely, moving is a big deal.
Right.
Going on a walk, even if you got to just gather your kids and go, hey, we're going to go on a little walk. Moving, getting outside of the office is huge.
Right.
And that if you're like me, I create this creative cave, and the longer I'm in it, the dimmer the lights get, and the more I'm just in my own zone.
Right.
And sometimes I'm I know I want to be in that dark room, but I got to just get out of there and get into the sunlight, get some vitamin D.
Yeah. Even if it's for
space.
A couple minutes, definitely. And it does get very hot in the summer, so you get your good sun intake.
Yes,
in the summer
good
here.
vitamin D.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely. All right. Well, cool.
Number 2, let's
Number
dive
2. Consume media that you love. Listen to an album, watch a movie, or read a book.
Yeah.
Bonus points if any of those media items aren't related in any way to the project that you're working on.
Absolutely.
So for me, a big one is watching usually an animated movie because I am not an animator. Yeah. So when you consume and kind of draw inspiration and just kind of watch, and it is kind of that aspect of taking a break, but maybe it's my way of saying oh no, I'm taking a break. I'm just gonna kick back and watch a movie on Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
But I try to pick something that I normally wouldn't ever really watch.
That's good.
An animated movie, something that is just maybe polar opposite of the tone that I'm working on. If I'm working on maybe a testimonial video that's really dramatic, maybe just taking a break or flipping the script and watching a comedy or an action film or something like that. It's really odd how we can find little ideas. I always call them like proxy ideas. I'm not drawing inspiration directly from a fight scene for my testimony video, but maybe I'm watching
videos like a Japanese animation.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but I guess I'm coining the phrase like proxy ideation because if they cut a sequence a certain way, I go, oh wait. I can go back to my computer. Maybe I have to pause this. Maybe I can cut it this way.
Yeah.
Boom, I'm back in that flow. And I don't finish the movie. Maybe I do. I don't know. Yeah. But that's something weird that like I do. Yeah. Maybe that it doesn't work for everyone. But like do you kind of resonate with that at all?
Yeah, it's like you could wear a groove in your brain. I know it's not technically right, but it's like creatively, like you're just going over the same thing over and over, especially in video. Mm-hmm. And I've done very little video, but I've done enough to know it's like you're going over those transitions so much. You're going like, and you get so close to it. You're like, I don't even know what I'm looking at anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to break out of that, and a break is a really good way to do it. What you're saying there with like getting outside of the box and getting inspiration from another sort of source is so important.
Right.
So jumping on, even for me, I'll jump on YouTube and I'll watch like people doing different things. I love like watercoloring and things like that. And so sometimes it's watching something. For me, sometimes it also involves just doing something. Especially when I was in art school, I had all these projects. So I'd be working on like graphic design or website design or something. And then I would take a break and I would paint a picture of something, that I had to do for school anyway. But for me, it was just kind of like, okay, it's just break out of that groove that your brain has worked.
Yeah.
Do something else.
Definitely.
So you could come back with a little bit of fresh perspective.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but when I love music. I was a musician first before I was
music, that's huge. Yes.
A graphic designer or a video editor or anything. So when I listen to like a Bon Iver record or like Copeland, like I kind of make a movie in I know it's dumb, and I'm being vulnerable here.
Be a nerd
but
with us.
just because like I visualize everything I kind of listen to as far as like albums, and like listening to music and kind of getting in that mode. So kind of like thinking of like a movie while I'm listening to an album helps me maybe go, oh, like I can cut this a certain way, or like, oh, if I do the title like this, like what if this album like had an opening for a movie, what would it look like? You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. It's weird because you're not drawing direct inspiration from that, but you're kind of proxying ideas from that. Yeah. I don't know. It's a
music
weird
is
thing.
huge, and even like this may be like sub point to number 2, but it's like even if you keep working. If I change the background music to something purposefully, it will also kind of jog me out of that a little bit. It's like maybe, especially in graphic design, video is harder because you're hearing things over and over. Yeah. But like graphic design, something like that. If you've got Bon Iver in the background and it's been there for like an hour or two, it's like, okay,
and you're getting real sad.
Yeah, you're getting real sad. Maybe we need some like Laney in there. Like maybe I need to like, or reach back, like grab like a Beatles album, like something that will just like get you out of where you're at. And that soundtrack affects my creativity so much.
Yeah, it's like cold water, right? Jumping in the deep end on cold water.
Totally.
So,
totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
Point number 3. Where are we at?
Make things for you. Passion projects that are low pressure keep you sane when you have to do projects for other people.
Yes.
So one of my favorite YouTubers, Sarah Dietschy, she coined this phrase, one for them, one for me. So she has a weird job where she works for herself and a seemingly like invisible audience on YouTube. Yeah. So she always says, I'm going to make one for me, one video that I really want to make or that interests me, that I'm going to edit and do the music how I want to. Yeah. And then the next one is going to be one for the audience, or maybe more clickable, or whatever. A review of a phone that just came out, know. So she's a tech YouTuber, so she inherently is like giving people content that they can consume as far as tech goes. So it's kind of timely, right? Yeah. And she found herself, and you can go watch her videos, but I think the general idea was she found herself kind of robbed of that passion of like, and that wonder of first starting, like, oh, I'm getting these tech products, I'm getting paid by people to, talk about their product. And it's just robbing the passion out of it. And I'm kind of like losing that. So I'm going to make one for me and one for them. Do you have any maybe
Yeah.
stories or something like that? Because school, I know I dropped out of community college, so I didn't really have like a super strong schooling background, but I know school is like, no, deadline.
And
Like,
I don't know if I gained much more than you did finishing a 4-year degree. But no, I mean, I think that's absolutely true. Like you have to find, and like for me, I think as I would work on projects that I really enjoyed, I would find that actually feeding, like my day job. So
right.
I was working here at the church. I've been working here for full time for about 7.5 years now. And I would get these like really dry times where I'm going, I have nothing left to bring to the table.
Right. Yeah.
Then Outcry started happening, and Outcry was like this thing that just shot off on the left side of my life.
Right.
Like I was going this way, and like most of my day was geared toward living streams.
Right. Yeah.
But then I'd have this other part of me that I would just shoot off over here and work on, and it was hard to explain, but it was like when I did that, it made me more creative over here.
Right.
So in the season and I had to be open to different sort of creative outlets too, because that was like creative direction. Over here, I was running communications, so they're like kind of different. Last year, 2019, year before last, I was writing the Head in the Clouds book. So I would spend my mornings a lot of times writing and just pouring into something that I'm like, I am passionate about this. I'm telling stories about my life.
Right.
I had never really exercised creativity in words before, but I was really starting to come alive doing it. Then I would come to work and I had way more creative energy. And it was one of those things that's like, it's weird. You would think like, oh, didn't you use it all up in the morning?
Right.
Well, no, it's like this kind of perpetuating thing.
Right.
So I was writing in the morning and then I would come in here and find myself more creative. And you have to, like, if you've forgotten your love for something creative, you have to get back to it. So
absolutely, yeah.
Music or whatever it is, like, and I know Nick is like this too. It's like Nick, who's on our staff, he's running production and doing all this stuff. Right. But then like at home, he might write a country song and record that. Like
incredible songwriter. Incredible.
He's a great songwriter, but he needs that to stay creative in this realm. And he's running production and doing all of that, but he needs to write a country song occasionally to fill that part of him, Yeah. And we all have that. And if you're a creative leader, don't just think you have to have outlets only at work. And don't think that creativity is this sort of finite resource that you're going to run out of. A lot of times more creativity begets more creativity. Right. So yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, it's one of those things where it's like, I really love editing like funny, dumb videos, like just basically for me and my wife or like my friends or whatever. So like, again, I find myself doing a lot of dramatic like testimony videos and stuff like that. And then, or even VBS, like a VBS edit is just insane, chaotic, right? And you have to be so different with it. And like that definitely helps me kind of fuel that passion for just like making something funny when I don't really get to.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely. Totally. That's a super important one, I think. That keeps you creatively filled up in that passion. So absolutely.
Okay, right.
Number 4, feedback. And we can talk a little bit about our creative team values because there's kind of some hand-in-hand stuff here. But get someone unrelated to your project to look at your project and offer them maybe a space for them to offer ideas. So a big one is I'll be sitting editing a video for, let's say, 20 hours, which isn't uncommon, but which a lot of time. So you don't even really know, like we keep saying it. Yeah, we just don't even know what we're looking at anymore.
Yes.
And just having someone that's like not a video editor, doesn't really care to edit videos, doesn't know any technical aspects of it, to watch it and be like, oh, like that seemed weird. Like my wife does that all the time because she watches a million TV shows. Like she's always beat me. Like she's like, oh, I already watched that season. I'm like, oh, come on. But like, so she's like familiar with like the output of that, like just that kind of thing. Yeah. So she can be like, oh, that felt a little weird. And I'm sitting here like, oh, well, I did that L cut like for 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, I guess maybe I should just like not die on this hill and like go back and like revisit it. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that?
Feedback's huge. I've told this story before, but it was Outcry a few years back. I I was in charge of like the graphic design direction for everything in the year. So I would lock down in a room, come out with like, we had our typeface and everything already set, but I would tweak color schemes or like some sort of theme that I thought for the year. And it was something that would kick off everything. It'd kick off video and everything. Mm-hmm. So this particular year, I always do what you do. Like I've sent my stuff out. When I finished it, there was a guy that does a lot of graphic design for Young and Free, and the head graphic designer for Passion. I would finish Outcry design and I would send it to them first.
Right. Because
they scared the crap out of me, because I'm like, these guys are really good at what they do.
Right.
And they're going to tell me, oh, that's weird, And so it put me in a different space where I'm going, and I knew that they needed to be able to go, yeah, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. This one year I was feeling either lazy or cocky. I don't know, one of the two. But I found this design that was like this cool, like paint, like this guy had like smeared this paint and it almost looked like lava or something. It was just crazy. Yeah. And the more I went through his images, the more I'm like, this is great. Like it was all in the same family. Oh, I just hit the mic. All in the same family visually, but each one was unique, And I thought, this is great. I'll package all this stuff together, created logos, created even some like rough shirt ideas kind of thing, packaged it all together, send it out to the team without sending it to anybody for feedback, because I'm like, I know this is awesome. Yeah. And I sent it to everybody.
Which is like so risky. That's
risky.
Kind of like insane.
Yeah, actually. So I send it out to everybody.
Can I say that about my boss?
Yeah. That's insane. I send it out, I'm like, this is awesome. Yeah. And I just get one email back from the president of Premiere, and he just said, have you seen Hillsong Conference's design this year? And then just said Michael. And I was like, dang it. So I jump on Hillsong's website, I look at the conference design, and I'm like,
they stole it from
me. It's like the same. They stole it from me, I guarantee it.
Yeah.
So, in other worlds, like, okay, you're in local church world, you're like, well, is Hillsong going to look at my stuff?
Right.
For Outcry, I was like, they are going to look at this stuff. And they're going to say snarky things like, oh, And I knew, I'm like, I can't roll forward with this design.
Right.
So I shot back to everybody. I was like, never mind, everybody. I removed the Dropbox. I was like, if you downloaded it, don't use any of those assets. Yeah. We're all done. Like, and at this point, I'm late. So I know, I'm like, now I need to have another idea. And at the time, Dave Contreras was here with us. He was helping us with video for Outcry. He was great. And I found some weird 3D images of Mars that were open source from U of A, not ASU, and it was amazing. It was like this 3D imagery of Mars, and immediately I jumped on Amazon and ordered a 3D pair of 3D glasses. Waited for 2 days for them to get to me. Threw them on, looked at the screen, and I'm like, it's 3D. It's like you could just wear the red and blue glasses. And then my mind started going, we can market Outcry 3D glasses and send them to everybody.
Yeah.
I was so excited.
Yeah.
So I packaged it up and I sent it to a few people. I was like, what do you think? And I learned a very valuable lesson. Yes, the design was great.
Right.
But I didn't take the time to ask anybody what they thought. Even if the quality of the design is really good, even if you're like, I am so excited about it.
Absolutely.
There are peripheral things that you're not paying attention to. And every now and then you'll finish a design and they'll be like, that looks weird, or that looks inappropriate, or that kind of looks like, things that, again, you're so close to it, you don't get that feedback.
Yeah.
And it really helps. I mean, I think this is where, as creatives, we have to have this sort of foundation of, I'm secure in myself.
Right.
My work does not represent me. It's just something I made.
Yeah.
I can make another thing. If people don't like it, and if the consensus is this is not working, that's okay. I can put it to the side. That doesn't represent me. I can always make another thing.
Right. And I think that's a good point to kind of loop back into the making things for yourself, right?
Yes,
so when we make stuff for ourselves, you can guard that as much as you want.
Sure. You can hide that, put it under your bed, whatever you want to do.
And you could watch and be like, man, I did a really good job on that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
Honestly, or I like this song that I wrote. It doesn't really fit anything that we normally do, but I like it. I'm going to listen to it because I like it, or I'm going to play it and sing it.
Yeah.
I think when you do enough of that, you upgrade your like I'm not like my work.
Yes,
right?
totally.
So when I show
which could be a totally separate podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe it should
Yeah.
be because
Yeah, identity
identity
as a
as
creative,
is huge.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
just to suffice to say on this point, it's like this will point you to
Right.
if there's a problem or not in your identity.
Right.
You know.
Absolutely.
So,
Feedback is super important.
Yes,
It's
yes.
probably the most important thing, I think.
especially when it's your job.
And it hurts. Sometimes.
Yes, and it hurts sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
And like you never outgrow it hurting
No.
you a little bit.
No.
I always say like it's a good sign if you put something on the table and you're like, it kind of hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
It means you poured your guts into it. It
Yeah.
means you care about it. You
Right.
know. So like you don't want to just throw work out and go, I don't know,
Right.
it's crap. But if you don't
Oh,
like it,
I'm
I
the
don't
king
care.
of that. I'm a 6.
Yeah.
I'm like a disclaimer. So I'll be
Yes.
like, I made this thing.
You
we
are
don't
a
have to
disclaimer,
use, dude.
yes.
And then Ryan's like, just show me the thing.
Just
like,
show me the video,
just
Dalton.
shut up. Show me it.
I just smile. I know you got to
Yeah.
go through a lot of precursors before you throw it on the table.
Which you think I would not do that after being with you for like 3 years, you know, and like getting feedback from you for like
It's a good sign.
2.5, 3 years.
It's a
Yeah.
good sign.
Definitely.
Yeah,
So
you have to
cool.
cross that fear barrier. But if that
Right.
stops you from putting it on the table, that's where it's unhealthy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or if you put it on the table and people don't like it and you crumble,
Yeah.
it's like you're gonna have to really look at
Yeah.
that and go, what is that
Right.
saying about what's happening in
Yeah,
here?
and we could talk all day about feedback, but I
Yes.
guess we'll leave with this one point. Like, feedback only builds resiliency, and that is like insanely important.
Yes.
Insanely
Yes.
important. If you're getting feedback all the time and it's a mix of good, bad, neutral, maybe,
Yeah.
which is weird.
Yeah.
Like, kind of like it. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, like you're only building resiliency and thick skin to take on bigger projects. You're
Yeah.
upgrading kind of with your
You'll
with your
only
workload.
get that thicker skin when you go through a little pain,
Yeah,
you know? And so
absolutely.
you just got to get into the habit of going, I'm
Yeah.
going to just put this out on the table. And if people
Absolutely.
think it's terrible, okay. You
Yeah.
know? But yeah, it's totally good.
Absolutely.
Resiliency.
It
Okay.
hurts, but it's good.
Number 5.
All right, last one. Show up and do the work,
Yeah.
and don't sit around to wait for creativity to just magically hit you, because
Yes.
it doesn't work like that.
Yes. Yeah.
We like to think
absolutely.
it does,
Yeah.
but it doesn't work like that. I don't believe it works like
No.
that. And I'd be amiss if I didn't reference one of my all-time favorite musical recording and performing artists, the 1975.
Yes.
Um,
I knew you would
I
mention
kn-
them
yeah,
at some
I
point.
knew it,
I
but
almost was
they're-
going to tell Nathan we should put money on Dalton mentioning
Definitely
the 1975.
big money, big
Yes,
money.
Big money.
Big money on that one.
Big money.
I love that band because they transcend not just their music, they're like a
amazing.
visual
The live show
identity.
is amazing, yeah.
The live show, their
Yeah.
branding, their identity, their music is like,
Yes.
and their music's the best thing of all of that. You know what I
Totally.
mean? So
Yeah.
it's this culmination of who they are. But one thing that their lead singer and main writer, their main writers are the frontman and the drummer.
Yeah.
And the one thing that Maddie, the lead singer, said was, you know, like everyone like commends them for their like definite outside the box, but still like approachable music style. Oh,
Yeah.
I've heard this before, but it's something like I've never really heard. You know what I mean? It's like this kind of dual purpose thing. And you only really think like you get that from like they're just sitting around in the studio, they're looking at each other, you know, and they're like, oh, this, and then they play this lead line. But in actuality, he
Yeah.
said the real way for us to work is to just show up.
Yep.
Just show up to the studio and we work on a song. Maybe we blast out 4 songs in a day and then we come back to them. Or maybe we work on like one part, the bridge of a song for like 2 days.
Yes,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
totally.
it's still work. I think that's maybe sometimes the harder thing to admit as creatives is like we can't just sit around and just like lightning bolt strike of
Yes.
creativity. We actually have to sit and mull over and do the work.
Absolutely. And I think there's been so many times, like that story I just said, like
Mm-hmm.
when I had to come back to the table, I didn't want to. I was like, "Ah, crap, you know, like I
Right.
poured my heart into this last
Right.
design. Now I got to do it again, you know? But there is that old saying where it's like 90% of the job is just showing up.
Yep.
And it's the same with creativity, you know, and like, I think like point 1 and 2 only makes sense if you're taking point 5 seriously.
Yeah,
you know, it's like if
absolutely.
you're showing up and working, if you show up in like 5 minutes and you're like, I got to take a break, there's probably something wrong. Like you gotta keep coming to the table.
Yeah.
And
Just show up 5 minutes late.
yes, yeah. And like I think about when we did the Dwell opener, you know, like we were coming up with.
Yeah.
I still remember us sitting in front of house. We saw your like rough draft of it. We're like, awesome. And then we started brainstorming, like, what if we did this and what if we did that? And we found ourselves at the place, like, you fast forward 2 weeks and it's like, we were in this abandoned, like, basketball court underground. Where I don't even know how we found it. We had hired, like, professional, like, dancers to come and dance while we projected onto them. I love it. It was amazing. Yeah. It didn't come easy, though. It wasn't like we have this idea in 5 minutes. It was like what if we did this and what if we did this? Right. And we're coming back to this root of, like, what are we trying to say with it, you know?
Right.
That requires hard work. And the more interconnected and the more you're working with a team, the more you have to just keep coming to the table.
Right.
You might finish a collaboration day and go, we got nothing done today.
Right.
But that's okay. Do it again the next day because you got to just keep showing up.
Yeah.
And you never know when that's going to happen. But when people think that you take this sort of passive position with creativity, or that there's these, like, creative people out there that are just always coming up with cool ideas, like, I get that all the time. People are like, "Oh, Ryan, you're creative. Like, come up with an idea." And I'm like, well, crap, I don't have any ideas.
Real quick, spoiler, everyone's creative.
Yes.
If you've ever had a thought, you're creative.
Absolutely. And so that's like this, like, we got to stop saying, like, oh, there's that creative class over there and there's this uncreative class over there. Like, everybody has potential to come up with an idea. For our team, I always say, like, it doesn't matter if there's an intern in the room or if you're an expert. Like, none of us are experts in the sense that we can always be surprised by creativity.
Absolutely.
So you never know where it's going to come from.
Absolutely.
But you got to keep coming to the table. You got to work at it. And for people that, again, maybe to knock on myself a little bit, like, if you got a 4-year art degree, you didn't really get, like, real world creativity. Like, yes, you learned the ideas of it and all of that. Right. Real world creativity, when it comes to collaboration, when it comes to staying fresh, there's a lot of hard work that's involved. It's not all theory. It's not all just the fun stuff. But sometimes you have to plow through a lot of uncomfortable, hard, difficult times to get to the gold. You know?
Right. So. And a lot of the time that comes with, like, just communication and relationship, almost turmoil. Is that, like, a crazy word to say?
Great.
But, like,
I love it.
But, like, like, for me, kind of a sub point to that is, like, there's these two kind of collaborations, like, styles, I guess.
Yeah.
So there's having a meeting and talking about the changes that need to happen to my video, and I'm just using my video as an example.
Yeah.
And then there's, like, me sitting in a room alone and, like, actually, like, burning my eyes out of my skull for 3 hours doing, you know, a 5-minute edit or getting the title just right or whatever. Yeah. And then there's kind of both, which I really love. It's way harder when you involve more people and people's time is limited. But I love sitting down with somebody while the edit is going on, and you got to be real fast, like with your keyboard shortcuts. But, you know, we sat down for a testimony video that we were kind of working on for Easter, and you're like, well, what if we cut this part out? And I'm like, okay, cool, grab, delete, you know, option delete, and then it goes back, and then I'm like, okay, how does this look? Like that, that is what I thrive in, but it's really hard because your time is limited.
Sure.
And then, like, my time is limited, and then, like,
but it's
just
the hard work of it, and you work hard at
Right.
pulling that together, getting the feedback. It never happens super easy.
Right.
But that hard work really matters in creativity.
Yeah.
So I think all these points are really good, and I think it's something that we need to keep coming back on, like collaboration, feedback. All of these things are so important. Things that we can really touch on in the future of the podcast.
Right.
But thank you so much for joining us at the Dwell Podcast. Make sure to jump on Instagram at Dwell Worship, WRSHP, because we're so cool we don't need vowels.
No vowels.
Dwell Worship on Instagram. Make sure and like, subscribe, all of that stuff on YouTube and wherever you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast. But thank you so much for joining us. Have an amazing week. We'll see you right back here.
Bye-bye. Smash that like button.
Smash that like button.